And just like that, we have made it to the end of the regular season in the NHL, which of course means the start of the Stanley Cup Playoffs. And with so many extremely talented and loaded teams, it should make for one of the best playoffs we've seen in a long time. In today's video, I will be giving you my predictions for which teams will win each series in the first round and go all the way up to the Stanley Cup Final. Please like and subscribe if you enjoy, and make sure to comment your picks down below. For the first series, we'll start with the President's Trophy winners, the Florida Panthers, who will be taking on the Washington Capitals in round 1. The Panthers score more goals than any other team in the NHL and play a high-flying offensive game. They have big-time stars throughout their lineup, and despite their goaltending situation being a little shaky at times throughout the season, Bobrovsky and Knight have both been excellent at times in their careers. The Capitals still have some very strong players like Alex Ovechkin, Evgeny Kuznetsov, and John Carlson, among others, but consistency has been an issue at times this year, as well as their goaltending situation where neither Samsonov nor Vanacek have truly taken hold of the number 1 spot in net. I think Florida will be too much to handle for the Caps this year, taking the Panthers in 5. The next series, we have the Toronto Maple Leafs taking on the Tampa Bay Lightning. These teams battled hard during the regular season, with Tampa getting the best of the Leafs with a 2-1-1 record. Toronto has a ton of pressure to win, and with their big guns firing on all cylinders, it'll be tough to stop. They will need one of their netminders to step up and take over the net if they want to win this series. The Lightning have much of the same squad from their back-to-back Cup wins and are top 10 in both goals for and goals against this year. Stamkos is also having a fantastic year with over 100 points. I think this will be a highly entertaining and unpredictable series, but I'm going to go with Toronto to win it in 7 games and knock off the champs. And now for the next series, it's going to be the Carolina Hurricanes versus the Boston Bruins. During the regular season, the Canes were pretty dominant, winning all 3 games and also outscoring the Bees 16-1. Carolina is also one of the deepest teams in the league, both offensively and on defense, and has very few weaknesses. This is a solid Bruins team, but I think they may rely a little too much on their top guys and maybe don't have enough balance to compete with a top team like Carolina. Should be a fun series, likely filled with drama, but I'm going to take the Hurricanes to win it in 6. And now for the last matchup of the East, we have the New York Rangers taking on the Pittsburgh Penguins. In the regular season, the Rangers have gotten the better of Pittsburgh in 3 of the 4 matchups. They have quite a few weapons on their squad, including one of the league's biggest X Factors and Hart Trophy candidate, Igor Shesterkin. The Pens have a solid roster, but have definitely been inconsistent at times during the season. They do have plenty of leadership and experience on their roster, and a lot to prove after getting knocked out early each of the past few postseasons. I think this could be a toss-up, but I'm going to take Pittsburgh to win it in 7 games. Moving on to the Western Conference side of the bracket, it's the Colorado Avalanche taking on the Nashville Predators. Colorado is obviously one of the best teams in the league this year and have very few weaknesses on their squad. Nashville has won 3 of 4 over the Avs during the regular season, but 2 of those were in overtime. The Preds have had a really solid year, especially MVP candidate and Norris frontrunner Roman Josi, who had 96 points. I think Nashville will play tough, but ultimately I'm going to take Colorado to win it in 6. Next up, we have a series that in my opinion is the toughest to pick. The Minnesota Wild facing off against the St. Louis Blues. These teams played 3 times during the regular season, and despite the fact that the Blues won all 3, they were mostly close games, including 2 that went to overtime. St. Louis has an extremely well-balanced team this year, with 3 really dangerous forward lines, and they also have 8 20-plus goal scorers. Minnesota, on the other hand, has a very similar roster, with many weapons throughout their lineup. They've also added some size and toughness to make them even harder to play against in the playoffs, and they have a huge potential X factor in Kirill Kaprizov, who is having an amazing MVP caliber season. Although goaltending may still be a question for both teams, I think if Marc-Andre Fleury can get hot and return to his playoff form that he had most of last year, then the Wild will come away with this series. I think it'll be super close, but I'm going to take Minnesota in 7. Now we have the Calgary Flames, who are playing the Dallas Stars in round 1. The Flames are a phenomenal team, have one of, if not the best top lines in hockey, as well as a strong defensive unit, great goaltender, and team identity under Daryl Sutter. Dallas has a great top line and a solid netminder, as well as some other key pieces, but they are the only team in the playoffs with a negative goal differential and have been way too inconsistent throughout this season. I think Calgary will take this in 5 games. And for the final series of round 1, we have the Edmonton Oilers versus the Los Angeles Kings. The Oilers have had an up and down year, but have certainly gotten hot at the right time. They of course have 2 of the best offensive players in the world in McDavid and Draisaitl, and Mike Smith is going into the playoffs on a 9-game win streak and has historically been a great playoff goaltender, including last year even though they lost. LA has had a strong season, and the team has a balanced attack with a good mix of veterans and young guys who are chipping in. They also play a stingy game that can be very tough to play against, but I think it'll be especially tough with Drew Doughty out of the lineup. I'm picking Edmonton in 5 for this series. Now moving on to the second round, we'll head back to the East. First up, we have the Florida Panthers taking on the Toronto Maple Leafs. 2 extremely high-powered offenses that also struggle at times to keep the puck out of their own net. I think this will be electric. And although it'd surely be a battle, I think the Panthers would come away with it in 6. Next, we'd have the Carolina Hurricanes taking on the Pittsburgh Penguins. These teams have played each other tough all year, but I think the depth and defensive structure of the Hurricanes would be too tough for Pittsburgh to handle this year. I have Carolina winning it in 6 as well. For the second round in the West, I have the Colorado Avalanche versus the Minnesota Wild. This would be electric also in my opinion, and likely filled with everything a hockey fan could want in the playoffs. I think it'll go down to the wire, but I have Colorado winning it in 7. And for the other matchup, we'd have the Calgary Flames versus the Edmonton Oilers in the Battle of Alberta. This series would also be filled with stars, storylines, and some bad blood, and would be awesome to see. I think the Flames are going to be tough to beat this year, so I'm taking Calgary to win it in 6. So this would leave us with Florida versus Carolina in the Eastern Conference Finals and Colorado versus Calgary in the West Finals. Panthers and Hurricanes have had some playoff-like games already in the regular season, and being the 2 division winners going in, they're obviously both amazing teams. I think it'll probably go 7 games, and I'm going to take Carolina to come away with it. For the West, Colorado and Calgary are also the 2 division winners, and have also had some tough playoff atmosphere type games this year. I think this one could go the distance as well, but I'm going to have to take the Avalanche to win it in 7. So this leaves us with a Stanley Cup Final of Carolina Hurricanes and the Colorado Avalanche. One of the top defensive teams in the league versus one of the top scoring teams in the NHL also. This would be a highly entertaining final in my opinion, and I'm going to pick Colorado to win this series and the cup in 6 games. I think McKinnon will be on a mission and will also take home the Conn Smythe for playoff MVP if they win. Make sure to let me know what you think down below, and thank you guys so much for watching. Can't wait for some great playoff hockey.